City Commission of Big Rapids, Michigan. We have a roll call.
Cochran.
Here.
Epley.
Here.
Gunther.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Simmons. Here.
Let's all rise and do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda is before you. Any additions or corrections? Mark Doje is there. Thank you. The minutes from October 17th meeting. We've read and reviewed. Any comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support. Motion support. Questions, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Motion carries. No special orders. Study session. Lauren, welcome.
Hi.
We're having our library update for the year.
All right.
So, Lauren.
My name is Lauren Perkins, Library Director at the Big Rapids Community Library. I just brought a few things to your attention on some of the printed out materials. We're very happy that the millage passed in Big Rapids Township in support of the library. So we have a big thank you to Big Rapids Township. That means that we have free library cards for City of Big Rapids residents, Big Rapids Township residents, any student that's enrolled in a school in Big Rapids, parents, faculty, staff, and students, and any employee of a City of Big Rapids business. We're still working on the contracted township, which is another item that I've included separately from the packet. But I just wanted to go over a few things that the library has available for people that have library cards, and also emphasize that even without a library card, the library is open to the public. Everyone can come in and use the library. We have Wi-Fi, we have computers available, and we have resources that people can access without a library card. But with a library card, you get access to over 50,000 books, audiobooks, and DVDs. You also get access to Melcat, which is the statewide interlibrary loan system. So you can order a book that we don't have at our library from any of the libraries in Michigan. It will be delivered to you at our library, and you can just take it home and check it out. We also have access to faxing, black and white copies, color printing, and with your library card you get 10 free copies per day and free faxing. You also have access to Libby, which is an app that you can download ebooks, audiobooks, and digital magazines. In fiscal year 21-22, library patrons saved a total of $865,576.87 using the library, which is pretty good. Just to point out some of the costs of library use, the average new hardcover book costs around $28, and those are statistics that are sent out by the library network that compiles the average cost of books in the state. Along with all of those things, you also get access to our collection of board games. November is actually International Games Month, so we're going to have a few new games, but we also have a Switch console that people can come in and use at our program, and lots of cool board games that you can check out and use at home. We also have a seed library where people can check out up to 10 packets of seeds. Not so much right now, but in the spring. We also have the literacy playground, story time, a service that not many people know about, Homebound Delivery, which is a completely volunteer-led delivery service to people that are not able to make it into the library for whatever reason. If you turn the page, on the back, we just have the same information, but it is talking about non-resident cards. So the commission was interested in what is going on in the future with non-resident cards, and that amount will go up to $75 January 1st for a non-resident card. which actually averages out to a little over $6 a month, which is less than Netflix and Audible and cable and any of the other streaming services that you may have. So that entitles anyone that does not live in our service area to use the library, check out everything just as any resident would. Do you have any questions?
Just a quick one.
Yes.
Lauren, can you talk a little bit about the usage of the literacy card? I understand that it's going great guns.
There are a lot of children out there. I don't have a way of, I can only give you anecdotal evidence of people using the playground. I do know that we had a storytelling event in October, and there were a ton of kids out there at the storytelling event, and we gave out glow sticks, and then all you saw were glow sticks on the playground running around. But it's definitely being utilized.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And bringing in new people to the library as well.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks. Lauren, on the letter that you sent to Green Township.
I have not sent the letter yet.
Oh, okay. I just wondered,
giving it to you
are
guys
those all
first.
the board members?
No, Kathy Johnson is not on the letter because she is on vacation.
Oh, okay. I thought she's been there forever, and I just
Yeah.
wondered, did you get another? No. That was my question. Others?
She's on vacation, an extended vacation, or?
She's in Croatia.
Okay. Just, if it was a week or so, I wanted to better understand why her name was not that.
You don't want any action on that letter yet. We haven't read it yet. Right?
There doesn't need to be any action. It's just for the information,
Okay.
for your information. I'm going to send them out unless you guys have any objections.
To me, it looks like when we had our joint library board and, city commission meeting, it looks like exactly what we asked of the board. Makes sense.
I would agree.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Closing commission retaining wall. Heather?
So the city of Big Rapids has been working with the Housing Commission with the property located behind the middle school that houses Parkview Village. And in the 70s, the city applied for permit to the state of Michigan for the city applied for a permit to the state of Michigan so that we could work together to have a permit to allow for retaining walls of it. And when that happened, it was in 1974. Working together, the retaining wall went in, and since then it's been up. So it's been there for approximately 50 years. In the last 10 years, I would say maybe even longer than that, we've been talking about the status of the structure of the retaining wall itself, due to a number of factors, primarily being ice jams that occur in that location. They've been scouring the wall itself. And so I'd like to show you an image of what the area looks like. Alright, so this is what it looked like prior to the wall being placed in. As you can see, lots of erosion. There was some structural buildings that were at concern falling to the river, and so they, being the city and the housing commission, got permission to put in the retaining wall. Back in 2015, there were pictures that were taken that were showing evidence that it was failed. Again, close up of 2015, the wall itself failed. And then another image they will see here is in 2021, again, showing that it's failed. So knowing that we had a concern for the structure itself, not just only for the slope of the retaining wall and the area that it's protecting, also because of a safety concern due to an heavy deck in that area and ice jam. So about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4, Mark Differ, city manager, and Mark Apache, director of the housing commission, we put our heads together and we started to really wanted to focus on how we could address this issue. And so we've been working with the state of Michigan to determine what kind of permit they would allow for. And just recently, about 2 months ago, I'd say, Eagle came back to us and they allowed for the project to move forward in a minor project category. And essentially what that means is that they would allow for us to put another retaining wall in front of the existing retaining wall, but no more than 200 feet would be allowed. That being said, we've been working with Eric from China New Pop. He works with the housing commission, and him and his design team came up with a recommendation of putting a retaining wall in front of that retaining wall. And I'll give Eric the opportunity to go through his picture that he has have so that everyone else here can see in front of him. And essentially, the estimate for that project is at $2.5 million. We regrouped and figured out that that's an astounding cost, but it's necessary to be addressed. And Eric and his team had come across a grant that's available through the state of Michigan. And so we would like to present to you next commission meeting the opportunity to apply for a grant in the amount of $1.5 million, whereas the city would then contribute $500,000 and the housing commission would contribute $500,000 to this stuff, which my understanding you met last week, and there's a resolution from the housing commission in support of pursuing that grant opportunity. We can do at the end of it. Pretty much sum that up pretty well. Anything?
No, I would just say, I'm not sure why it happened, why the banker wrote it back in 73, but it did. I don't know if it was from the construction process of building the units, because it happened during the same time frame. Yeah, so our concern is protecting the bank from eroding. We just had a storm drain break, and you see what can happen with some erosion. It happens pretty quickly. So I know Mark and I talked about this for a long time, and we kicked the can down the road. Right now is the time to address it. So, I appreciate you guys working on it and the city's grant writers too.
So the image that I have called up here is actually different than the one that you have presented in front of you. However, that being said, this is the existing retaining wall itself right there. And Eric has suggested that we do 200 feet in the current location.
Yeah, I believe that's what Eagle said is permittable. Having that conversation with them about potentially moving 200 feet a little bit to the north, but we're still on at this point. We're not sure what they're allowed to do there.
And ideally, we'd like to have the opportunity to address some of the scouring that takes place north of where the retaining wall is right now. Boulders or
riprap, there's you can do some kind of tree stumps and stuff that are better, can be better fish habitat. We're kind of at the mercy of what Eagle will permit at this point.
Heather, I just jump in real quick. If I say something wrong here, jump in. So the issue we're running into is that sheep piling along a river's edge is not something that Eagle is fond of or would approve, maybe even necessarily in a modern application. What they're telling us through the 200 feet reference is that you could basically put back what's there. So that's the issue that we're running into, because we really think it needs to be a little bit bigger. And so there's a permitting conversation that I know this is Eric Sieglin from Brian Newhoff, who's been our conduit through working with Eagle, because we really need to expand the project a bit, and I think that's what we're seeing here. But there's a permitting, question mark, I guess, at this point. And it comes back to that: how do you, in an environmentally sensitive way, protect the slope?
That's the big question.
Yes.
So.
How long is the existing wall?
200 feet.
And this to make it not deteriorate again shortly after you put 2.5 million in. It's the same wall, same stretch.
So we'll drive the sheet piling deeper than it is right now, and we'll also do some work on the slope to reinforce the slope. We think that the kind of a combination of the river and also the slopes being so steep and not reinforced at this point, that it kind of looks like they're being held up by the vegetation on them right now.
Is there any way to estimate approximately how long this new retaining wall would last?
Theory, right now it's lasted almost 50 years.
Yeah.
So we're looking at potentially another best case scenario, 50 years to come up with a better solution if you go with another other modifications.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that's the idea behind it. But realistically, this is a unique grant opportunity that just happened to be found through the high water shoreline program, and they've dedicated over $14 million towards addressing some water issues. So this kind of falls right in that wheelhouse. So that will be the next thing that we're going to present to next week is proceeding with a grant authorization and committing funds from the city as well.
How much safety risk is it to tubers, canoers, swimmers?
It's a great question. I had Laura, our grant writer, have a conversation with Steve Schroeder, in particular because of the dive team. They know that it's an issue. They'll be writing a letter in support. They do think that it's a safety concern and should be addressed as well.
Yes.
Well, what is stream armor?
So that's the large boulders or tree stumps, something to kind of protect because you kind of see what happens here now. This is a black and white one, but it's kind of hard to see that there's a pedestrian bridge in the island, and if you stand on the pedestrian bridge, you can see the flow from the channel goes. It's like right here, and there's that eddy that she's talking about, kind of a constant flow right here. This is the area we're talking about armoring, is where that eddy is to kind of protect against that scour that then gets into this area and kind of takes that out.
So it would appear that there's a couple of different issues. There's the erosion, which we would have the reinforced slope, the condition of the existing retaining wall. It looks like the majority of the issue with the existing retaining wall is right at that bend.
Correct.
And so to take off some of the pressure against that, we've got the proposed stream armoring.
So if it would be permitted.
If it would be permitted.
As of right now, through our conversations that we've had with our contact in that division of Eagle, she has pulled on that they will allow for the sheet piling, but again, no more than 1,500 linear. So those are the kind of conversations that Eric is trying to have.
But not the armory.
He said not the armory. You mean the.
She'll allow the sheet metal, but will she allow the armory and the folder?
We haven't got clarification on that yet. That's what we're working on. Regardless, in the grant application, it will be specific towards the retaining wall itself and addressing whatever erosion issues that we've had to the best of our ability. We don't have to have the permit signed off through Eagle to proceed with the grant application.
My understanding is we're not just gonna approve this and it can happen immediately anyway. The funding for this, which the city's portion is $500,000, I believe it's something we're gonna be putting away for a couple of years, to save us that cost. What do you think the likelihood would be between now and when we'll be a part of finding more grants?
I think we would certainly look. And I also recognize that this is maybe not brand new to any of you, but it feels sprung on you a little bit. And that's only because there's grant programs rolling out that have never been rolled out before. And they're coming out fast and they don't have long periods of time to apply. And we really feel like this one is a unique opportunity. But certainly, Commissioner, we will look for other grants. And if we can reduce both the cities and the Housing Commission's obligation to this project, we'd look to do that. Absolutely.
It looks like the grant deadline is this month, the end of this month.
End of this month, yes.
Is why it's.
Well, we added it in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep, that was my understanding as well.
Others? Yes.
I'm sorry, I just have one more question. In the materials that you provided for us, there was mention of the fact of a possibility of a tremendous, or I should say a substantial price increase should a barge be required for doing the work. How's that going to, is that factored in at all in terms of the commitment from the city and the Housing Commission? Or how
I mean,
give me a sense of the process around that?
I can't speak for the estimate that Eric provided to us today.
Well, the estimate was pretty generous for the price per length of sheet piling wall. So I think that you could do a barge for that price. I'm hoping you could do it without a barge. Do it from either set up on a large crane and have on cart or something. And I'm hoping you could do it without a barge. That would be, especially with the velocity of the river there, it would be really tricky.
So all the construction would come from the back of the middle school, not the Hemlock Park, is that right?
Correct.
So all the equipment would be at the back end of the middle school?
Correct.
Not in the brand new remodeled, totally done Hemlock Park?
Yeah, it'd be a nice paved middle school park.
It just seems like you're doing the same thing they did before, and we're sure that that ice isn't gonna come and just dig that back out again for $2.5 million.
It's a good question, Mayor. I don't think there's a totally permanent solution that either Eric's brought up or that we've thought of or proposed. I mean, the conditions of that river change, number one, and are harsh. So, 50 years may be the only realistic life we can achieve. Eric, am I wrong on that?
Yeah, it's hard to predict what that river is going to want to do. Right now it looks like it wants to go right into that bank, but once we protect that bank, it might decide I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Did they think about it when we put all those houses up on the hill?
I don't know about Mark.
I was only 7 years old. The dam removal kind of changed the river current. I think it tends to pile up that ice, so this condition probably didn't exist when we the city installed the retaining wall. So that could change in 50 years again too.
Right, but the retaining wall, I think, would have been placed farther north if that eddy would have been there in the 70s, and it wasn't. And so I can't say it wasn't. I wasn't born, but
I wasn't either. But
common sense, because that is the worst spot.
So the obvious question is what happens if we don't get the $1.5 million grant? We're not a shoreline, though.
Right.
Mainly put on there for shoreline.
No, we're back at the drawing board again, there's no doubt about that. I mean, so we've been talking about this for at least a decade, if not longer, so we're definitely going to keep plugging away, but I feel like over the years, that Mark and I have been talking about this project in particular, we're finally getting to a potential solution, and it hasn't felt like that for a number of years, so at least give us an opportunity.
Mayor, you raise a great question, and I think we're going to continue to be diligent looking for grant applications. The idea that our small community can come up with $2.5 million is daunting. That's why Sahaki's retired. He chose to retire now. I'm just joking. But, yeah, it's a good question, and we are very hopeful. But
So Eagle would not have even looked at this issue if we hadn't brought it. In other words, they're not there to protect that bank at all. It's just, they just let it fall in the river. I mean, what's their mission?
yeah, we don't come to them with projects. That's not the other way around, right? They're a review agency of what we want to try and do. So they're not actively looking for trouble spots. They would want the most natural shoreline protection that you can provide, which is, in this particular instance, is hard to come by, right? Something that, how thick is the sheet piling? 3/8 of an inch, half inch or something?
Yeah.
What natural substance could stand up to, half-inch iron? I don't, it's hard to know, but that's where the permitting process is just going to be a work in progress.
Right.
And Eric's expertise and his team at Prime and Newhoff are going to have to really help us through that, and have been very helpful to date to get us where we're at.
Other questions from the public for Heather or the engineer? Yes, please.
I just want
Say who you are and
Jana Ferrier.
you have the mic for Heather.
I just want to, I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but we used to own the house at 235 East Grand Traverse, which is the last house before you make that bend behind the river. And back in the 70s, we lost, the erosion was terrible. We were going to lose that house because the water was coming against against the bank. And we could see the writing on the wall, so we actually sold the house because we didn't know what the city was going to do then at that point. So I don't remember what the city did down at that house, but there's no land left there. I mean, that house is basically right at the cliff. Whatever they did diverted that water to probably go towards where you guys are talking about now. And that was back in the 70s.
After the dam came out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Other questions? Commissioners? Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Public comment, not related items on the agenda. Please,
can I just stay up here?
use the mic though.
Okay.
If you don't mind using it.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. I just kind of wanted to know what the status was on the Tucker building. I know that was brought up a couple months ago across from Eric Williams' law office. What was going on with that? And then the other question I have is there a reason why every time Heather goes to a meeting or walks over to Sherwin-Williams, she has to be escorted or driven by Jake Walston? He sits in his truck and waits for her. I mean, we're paying him to be the, whatever he is, the director of the streets or whatever, but it seems like he's spending a lot of time carting her around. Those are my two questions.
Thank you. You don't have to respond, but Mark or Eric an update to the citizens on the Tucker would be worth doing. I think we could respond to that question for sure.
The last I heard was that Tucker building was supposed to be demolished, or it was going to be sold and demolished, and the county building inspector has jurisdiction over that step or phase. And I don't remember the last update. I have to ask Mark.
I'll get you an update, Mayor. My latest is the same as theirs. But I will get an update.
So the marijuana company is pulled out and it's back to Tucker.
I don't remember if it's completely pulled out or if it just phased out, timed out, and so that sale wasn't going through. And then the backup was going to be the building inspector's step of forcing demolition if it's not repaired. And we just have to ask him what the latest is on it.
The second question, I have no clue. That'll have to be directed to Mark to address later.
I mean, it's not any different than the time that Van Johnson and I worked together quite frequently. There are projects that are being worked on by the DPW staff, namely the garage, and it's way more time efficient for Jake and I to go to that location to have his questions answered rather than send him find questions, come back to me, then send them back. It's just a more time efficient that way.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll go to general business. The first is a resolution approving a Class C license for the David L. Eisler Center for a liquor license. I think somebody from Paris is here.
Hi there. I'm Nicholas Capel. I'm an associate in Student Life, and I'm the administrator for the David L. Eisler Center.
Thank you. Questions for our visitor or for anyone regarding that? That's just for that building itself?
That's correct.
So you have now a liquor license for the golf center?
In progress, yes.
Well, that's not done?
Last I heard it was still in progress.
I think our base is done, Mayor.
Don't worry about it, Mayor. Don't worry about it.
4 times. So it's just for the center?
Right.
Others, questions?
I have one, and this is not a special license, this is a blanket license for the center to serve alcohol.
Correct. There's one who had 2 weddings at the Holiday Inn Conference Center. It's gone now, we need venue. So I think the city will appreciate it for those events, for sure. All right, is there a motion for the resolution for a Class C license at Paris?
So moved.
Support. There's a motion, support, questions. This was in the list of criterion that the state gave Paris to have to get the resolution from the city. Yes. Questions, anyone? Please call them.
Yep. Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson? Yes. Simmons?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Matt, we should have a resolution for you the next day or two.
Appreciate it.
Won't get it tonight.
You feel free to go enjoy your evening. I don't want to sit through it. It's a long meeting. Good night. Next, a resolution adopting the marketing strategy plan for the city of Big Rapids, which we've heard a lot about presentations from Jesse, and we're here finally to put some approval on that, I think.
Yes, I think that's true, Mayor. If the commissioners have any further questions, I know Jesse and Paul are here to talk us through those, but this is something we talked about a number of times. We had a work session on, as you pointed out, and a nice step forward that the commission is willing to adopt it.
Questions? Anyone? Public? Commissioners? Seeing no questions, we can call we have a resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved. Support.
Motion, support. Sharon?
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Next is a resolution appointing members to the Airport Advisory Board. These were brought to the commission through the,
Mark, I can speak to it, Mayor, thank you. So our Airport Advisory Board meets quarterly, and they're in place to advise the commission and city staff on all things airport related. And we are in need of some members. When that particular board was created, it was created so that there were two members of the city of Big Rapids, or two citizens that were appointed. We've never been able to get to two. We've only ever had one. Dan Farrell is on there. And John Ward has filled out the interest indicator, provided his interest in being on it. Isabel Harris, as a pilot at the airport, a local business person, somebody who's very excited and passionate about the airport, and will be a good addition, we think. And Jeff Robleski is the Aeromed helicopter pilot, and is a great resource as well. So staff believes that these three individuals will help that Airport Advisory Board be more rounded out and provide good feedback to the commission on airport issues.
they have no authority on spending, et cetera. Is that right?
That's true. They just make recommendations on a variety of issues. I think we'll see one at our next meeting potentially. I know we've been working and talking about fees and those types of things. We haven't changed our fees at the airport, but that's only something that the city commission can do, not the airport advisory board. That's one example.
Questions from commissioners? Yes.
I do not see an interest indicator for, I only see one for Ms. Bergen in our packet. I'm sure you have them.
I believe so, yeah. I don't
Thank you.
have them with me.
Is there a motion for the resolution adopting those members for the Airport Advisory Board?
Support.
Motion and support. Further questions? Ms. Manosky?
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Conklin?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes. The next resolution may be the most important one on the docket today. It's a resolution authorizing a census recount committee. The city has immediately saw a reduction in our revenue sharing of nearly $500,000 because of the census. And now we're getting to the point where we have to make a decision on whether we're going to try it again. We have time, but we're starting early. And Mark and others of us have recommended different folks for that committee. It's so vital because Mark is estimating that it may cost $250,000 to do the recensus for the city alone. Is that right?
That's true. That's a very, so there's not a lot of basis to that estimate, although I know we have to pay all the census staff that are here for the whole time they're here. We have to provide them office space the whole time they're here. There's just a number of things that, and we were able to, when we first talked about this, Mayor, we were able to see what other communities had done when they had done recounts and what it cost them. And I think the most recent one that we maybe saw was 2015. I'm looking at Paula. It goes back away, and they were 6 digits then. So, it's probably not hard to see how it could get in a few months.
So the idea is this committee will help us, the commission, decide whether the gamble's worth taking.
Yes, I can speak to that. Clifton Franklin, Linda Miller, Lisa Ortiz. Linda's with us, by the way. Thank you, Linda, for your willingness to be on there. We have a replacement resolution that has my name, Paula, who won't be serving on there, and Katie Van Kuren as well. But we also, if the mayor, yeah, go ahead, Mayor, sorry.
We left a blank there because we wondered if one of the commissioners, doesn't have to have a commissioner, but if one of the commissioners or mayor want to be on that committee, we would add that name even tonight and move from there because we need to get this one rolling. So is there any interest in the commission to being on that committee?
I would happily serve on that committee, if the other commission members, I support that, so I want to do that.
Very good. And we did not appoint a chairman, we thought the committee could, create their own chairperson, right, Mark? So
Yeah,
where we
yeah.
went? Right. It's an excellent committee of smart people. Making that decision is going to be difficult. So.
I do have a point of order question.
Sure.
If I'm on the committee, should I abstain from voting?
Voting on what?
The resolution
The
to create the
resolution
committee.
to create the committee.
You do not have to abstain. You probably should not abstain. You should.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for the resolution appointing the Census Recount Committee?
So moved.
Support. Motion and support. Further questions or explanations or anything on that one? Call the question.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
And we'll move to Public Works.
I will start, Mayor, and then I know Melissa's here and done a lot of good work to walk the commission through the changes that have come about through our AFSCME contract negotiation process. And I also want to mention and thank a number of the AFSCME bargaining team, maybe the whole team, the big is in the back row. A bunch of great folks, Allison Nelson, Bob Halstead, Jake Brenny, and Chad Montgomery. I just appreciate them being there and the process we went through to get to where we're at. I just very much appreciate it. And so, Melissa, if you're willing.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll talk loud enough. Can you guys hear me? I tend to have a loud voice. I guess it comes from being a mom sometimes. So, I'll start. I put the wages first because usually financial. So really, when we went into this, as we do with every negotiation process and everything that we're going through right now, is how can we not only recruit but retain our current staff. So obviously that was a concern. So wages, the financial, the economic parts of the contract were a big thing. So as previously discussed by the city manager at prior meeting, the 6%. Kind of across the board, across the city. That's what we had agreed upon with the AFSCME union, and then a 2.5 for the next 3 years of the contract. The custodian pay rate, just kind of explain that a little bit. There was a completely separate classification that was actually significantly less than the labor classification. So there were discussions that really we wanted to kind of bring that a little bit closer together. So previously there was someone that they were hired in with the City of Big Rapids over at the street department. They were hired in as classification of a laborer. And then they, worked through start after 90 days, after a year, and then on their 2-year anniversary, they automatically went into the heavy equipment operator classification. If an employee was hired in at that labor classification and someone who had been working in the heavy equipment classification, they were doing the same work and being paid differently. So we agreed as a team that we would just have the heavy equipment classification and then reclassify or change the custodian pay rate to that of what the laborer was. So that was kind of a big change there. We did want to recognize employees as far as longevity. So for an employee, to top out at after 2 years or after 3 years, what's the incentive, to stay around? So we talked about, how could we do that? And so we came up with an after 5 years and after 10 year case, adding that step. So an employee doesn't top out at wages until after they've been with the city now for 10 years. So we thought that was a good thing. Lead person pay, pesticide certification, pool certification, stormwater is something that's specific to the wastewater treatment plant. Those are all certifications that employees can obtain. They can take the test and get that certification, and then it's added to their regular hourly rate of pay. So again, wanting to recognize those employees that are willing to step up and take on that extra responsibility. So we agreed to increase those amounts for those certifications. An F license, employees have the ability to get an F license even if their specific job doesn't require it. So again, one of those things, we want to be able to reward employees for stepping up and wanting to do, you know, a little bit more, because you never know. You might need them to help, even though that might not be a part of their regular job. What I refer to as housekeeping, some changes, adding City Hall as a posting bulletin board location. The custodian cleans several city buildings, but that position's kind of hub. They punch the time clock here at City Hall. So we needed to add that clarification, adding so there's 4 posting locations for postings there. Special conferences, emergency meetings, investigations, we had clarified and added some language there that wasn't there previously. So that was a good thing. And then we modified the section bereavement, just kind of updated that as far as family relations that we felt should be covered under bereavement. Longevity and vacation accrual, the change there is so that it mirrors what the non-bargaining employees get. So it's just nice to be able to have the same benefits with some of the employee groups there. The comp time payout, that's another change that actually was making that be the same as how we handle the police and fire groups, how their comp time is handled and how that's paid out and how they're able to use that as leave. It simplifies things administratively if you can have some similarities between some of the groups. Open enrollment, you know, every employer holds an open enrollment period for their employee benefit. And the employees were requesting that enrollment be at least 14 days. So we agreed to that. And then deleting the catastrophic leave donating program. The city commission had adopted a general sick leave donating program. I almost want to believe that it was maybe in the spring. So this was taking that out of the actual contract, because all of this would make all of the employee groups having the same leave donating program now. A big change is going to be employees previously or currently take a 15-minute break in the morning. They have a 30-minute lunch and then a 15-minute break in the afternoon. And so we talked about ways to try to help with productivity. When you have projects, you know, sometimes it's kind of a pain that, you know, oh, we need to take a break. You know, now does it make more sense to have just one big break during the day? So we agreed to doing an hour lunch, and half an hour of that is paid and a half an hour is unpaid. So the employee's not losing a benefit, it's just putting it all together type thing. So those are the changes. I know I just kind of quickly went over that. You can see in the information there the specifics, but open to answering any questions that you might have.
What percent increase is it over everything for the first year? The 6%. What's the overall? What's it going to cost the city compared to last year?
6%.
Not just wages, everything.
Oh, dollars. I'm sorry, that I didn't do the total.
I just wanted to have a number.
I can get that to you.
Okay. The questions?
I just want to thank city staff for going through this process, taking the time to do that. It sounds like overall it was a very positive experience for everyone. And thank you also for taking the time out of your personal life to come to tonight's meeting. I appreciate that.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion for resolution approving the contract?
So moved. Support.
Moved and support. Further questions? Sharon?
Cochran.
Yes.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Next, Heather, your rental equipment resolution.
Yes, sure. Happy to talk through this one. Every year we go out to bid for snow removal services, and we did so this year, and we have 2 contractors willing to help us with snow removal in the time that we may need that service. Morningstar and Testamacher. And essentially, this is when we have those large snow events where we have to move a lot of the snow from downtown over to the airport. So, good prices, great people to work with, happy to make the recommendations to accept.
Questions? Is there a motion for the resolution for the rental snow removal services?
Support.
Motion and support. Keep it, Karen.
Yep. Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
And the last one is the order to clean the well screen. Mark, you want to do that?
Sure, I'll tackle this one. It seems like a never-ending project, I know, to the commission, because it certainly feels like that to staff, but having those 4 wells up and operational at top performance is vital to the city's operations. Right? We draw our water from 4 different wells at the airport, and the commission has previously authorized the project out there to keep those wells going, and in that work they found out that our screens are vitally clogged on well number 3, and there's some pictures that demonstrate that, and they may not be overly apparent, but we have a cost to clean those screens and get them working properly, and the cost of $22,500 would be done through the change order process that only the commission can authorize that amount of money. So that's why it's before you tonight, and staff is recommending.
How far down is that screen?
I believe it's 50 feet.
And they don't bring it up, they
No,
treat it.
they treat it. And I'd also like to add to the change order the request to extend their contract to the end of this year, December 31st, as they still need to do further inspections on the well number 2.
That's what I wanted to
on?
confirm. It looks like a typo.
I see what that's on there, just making sure.
So it costs $22,000 to put stuff down the well to dissolve the stuff on the screen?
If you want to put it into layman's terms,
Yeah.
I guess you could.
That's what they have quoted us, Mayor. We can certainly go out to bid for that
It
work.
sounds so high.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of money.
When was the last time we had this work performed?
Oh, I don't know.
We don't have that answer for you right now.
I can get that in
Yeah, we can
Mark,
get it.
and he can report back.
I mean, you have to have the screen clean, but holy moly. They don't have to pull, you know, at home, they pull you.
Right. Our other option, Mayor,
No,
is to go out to bid for it, which staff is certainly willing to go that route.
Commissioners? Is there a resolution to the change order to clean the well screen?
Support.
Motion to support. Questions further? Karen, you look like you're on the city.
I just want to make sure I understand the contract. The contract is for the inspection, correct? Or is it for the inspection and the cleaning? The current contract is for the
The
inspection.
current contract is for,
I dug the trench around the well, so that way they could pull the pipe and change out the pit with the backer. And in doing so, they identified that they made a recommendation to do further inspecting because something caught their eye. And so we did a change order prior to this one because it was less than the $7,500, which was to televise the actual pump itself and the well. And they, with the pump being off, with number 3, it was the opportune time. And these were their findings. And this is the recommendation rather than them just walking it up.
Understood. I just wanted to clarify, a lot of times we have service contracts where over the course of 3 years, a company comes in 3 times a year and does work. This is separate from that. We've been in specifically to do a certain work and to investigate, and this is the result of their investigation.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
But 1 and 2 screens are great.
We don't know about number 2 yet.
Further questions? We have a motion and support? Roll
Good.
call.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes. Before we start the work session talking about Ferris and our relationship with Ferris,
Commissioner Simmons wondered if we could do unscheduled business before so that we can end with the work session. So is there any unscheduled business that the commissioner or others would like to talk about?
I do have one.
Yes.
I can interject. Mark, could you remind me how many cars we reduced the motor pool fleet down by? I have a memory of maybe I should pose that to you.
Staff cars.
Staff cars, was it? I feel like it was 5.
Well, it's kind of a little bit of a complicated question in that we took there were some that parked here. We traditionally always had 2 staff cars. Now there's 1. And then there was one at the wastewater plant that now is no longer there. I see Jake and Heather trying to shake their heads, and it seemed like there might have been one other. Maybe there was one that Josh had. I think we went from, we eliminated 4, and then we went to 1 dedicated staff car.
That was specifically more for long trips.
Yeah. People go Lansing, Grand Rapids, whatever.
So with all of that, I want to thank city staff for carpooling and saving on trips to visit things related to it. Thank you.
We'll pass that on.
Other business? Yes, please.
Just one thing, we had an election on Tuesday, and excellent turnout, which is hooray for Big Rapids. People got out and voted, and I want to offer a big thank you, as always, to Mrs. Gillis, our clerk, and Ms. Yanofsky, our deputy clerk, and all of the volunteer election workers who helped to make that run smoothly and uneventfully, and to make sure that everybody's vote was recorded accurately. So thank you to all of you for the job well done.
This is in Arizona. Other business. We're going to break for just a second. We'll meet over there and talk about our relationship with Ferris.
Good job. I went to the playground with my grandson, and he was probably like a
I'll be over for bacon and eggs by there. Let's do it.
They were more excited.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess It's fine, but like sometimes sometimes you gotta step to the top and figure out where it is.
Alright, you guys. Hey, good luck tomorrow.
We need to talk housing.
On the road's all done. He's coming back next week. Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Okay. I thought I'd give, 2 weeks.
You what?
Did not respond.
Okay.
2 weeks.
Hold there.
And it's been 2 weeks since I asked for a report on the house. Simple. Real simple.
Well, I will.
When was it grandfathered in? That's all I asked. 2 weeks. That's the first time I've seen him in many
really?
moons, yeah.
I'm gonna notice here.
Oh, okay.
At 3:45, board meeting. That's.
I saw her at this meeting 12 months ago. And it was the day before the meeting, and I didn't get a notice. I asked her, how about next Monday? I said, I can't do it Monday, I can do it Tuesday. And I never got back to her. And the other one was 319 one. All I was asking is, the advertising is who runs on that.
Take all the medication and everything else and get them stopped. Then broke the stuff.
I will get back to you on both of them. We'll make sure it's probably.
Okay.
Right?
It's great outcome.
That's right.
I'm sure you probably did.
Yeah, now,
They want machines.
do this in your neighborhood or?
We're back in session. I just want to give you a brief review or post view. I met with Dr. King. Great meeting. He's got an amazing guy with the sharpest, quick mind around. And we didn't touch the subjects except that. I told him we were having this meeting, and when we come up with some ideas, then we'll have our meeting with him. They right away gave us the date to pick. Don't pick December 1st, because that's Grand Valley's here to play basketball, and he likes to go to the basketball games. So, if we do that, I'd rather not use the 1st. Did you notice I sent that back to Kim?
She mentioned that to me, yes. You had a day, it seemed like somebody else had a
Mainly because he has not missed a game yet, and I hate to,
Mm-hmm. John, did you have a conflict too?
Not so much a conflict, I just preferred like the first or the fifth. The 28th is my birthday, and I don't know what I love you, but I want to be at home with my family.
Oh, very good vacation.
Were they all night meetings or we didn't talk about
They were.
that?
They were. They were all his times, and
The other one, Mayor, that's sort of running concurrently is the meeting about town, which I think is
different day.
Yeah.
That's the 4th.
That's the fourth.
Four, okay. This would be the day after.
He and I talked down a lot.
So who's going to be at the countdown meeting?
I was invited, I know that.
I was, and then I think Jeff Tyson and
Tim Heiss.
And I don't know, they invited me. I don't.
He did.
But,
On a Sunday?
no, that's what I was gonna say, it's the same day as our commission.
No, it's a Monday.
Okay.
It's a Monday,
Which is
it's
also
early, like 4:30 or something.
Okay.
That's fun.
Oh, it's not a town meeting, he wants to discuss whether,
The meeting of that house.
Which is the fifth.
Okay, I'm sorry.
he's had a lot of feedback saying that
I thought the 4th was in my head for some reason. I have
the
no
prior
idea.
arrangement, he's got a lot of complaints about it, so he wants to either not have it or do it a different way. That was his thought. But the only specific thing I brought up
with the census thing, because I said, we need help, we need real help from Paris on the census thing, and how did the person we had from Paris how did we arrive at that person?
Jim Bachmeyer, directed me to Jaretta Harris?
Yes.
Jaretta Harris, and Jaretta said you really want Lisa. She's got boots on the ground of housing and how it works. I don't know Lisa, but I had a conversation with her. She's a delightful lady, and that's how I got to that.
That's how you got to it.
Yeah.
And I chose, as my nomination, Dr. Franklin. He's seems like an analytic machine. I mean, the interview we had with him, remember? And I think he'll be a big help with the analysis of numbers for the census committee. And that committee, I believe they can decide when they want to meet them. It looks like it might be able to be a daytime except for work. Because they thought, same with Clifton Franklin, he thought, well, I'll go between classes schedule.
Yeah.
The importance of that committee, I'm overstating it. That's a big decision to affect us so huge. The analysis is.
Have they articulated the third charge for that committee so that they know exactly what they're about?
Well, yeah, I don't know that. I mean,
It's not written anywhere.
Yeah, I spoke to each one of them. I mean, the idea is that they're going to make a recommendation to the city commission on whether they feel like they should do it and the basis for why they think that. And so, I think it's clear in their minds, and that I'll reiterate that to them.
Well, and I think when we first elect the chair, right, and then we've got some goals for us, and through those meeting minutes that we need to for the commission where we're at, and you guys can provide feedback.
When is the next time we have to make a decision? I don't really know.
Well, they told us originally when we investigated this that you could apply in June of 23. But this committee needs to figure out.
We got
to find out whether or not
we
that's
have
an
to go back
actual.
to them and see if that's changed too.
And what is the application process, and what does it mean when they come here, and when there's a number of questions.
So those are
I think I have a pretty good handle on it, but I'm sure the other committee members will be like, well, have you thought about this?
That was on me there to make another contact with them.
Oh, okay.
So I have to do that again.
Do that before you retire.
I do.
Hey, once you retire, you can be on our census committee.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, maybe.
For free. That's
I wasn't gonna put it that way, but,
So maybe now is a good time to transition to our conversation about Paris. For lack of a better word, I'm calling it town down. We'll replace that with whatever the university decides to say. But I just wanted to give an overall of where we started. We had that initial meeting in the library, talked about some ideas, talked about goals, and throughout there, let's try to do something in Paris' language. They have a mission, they have a vision. As part of that, the committee members, the commission members, and the mayor sent out emails with the mission and the vision. And then what I wanted to do today was just walk you through a couple of things on how we got from here to what I'll call our talking points for today. So, one of your packets has the State University mission. This is straight from their website. We don't have to read it through right now because a lot of the things that are important to them are important to us too. But I didn't want to not provide it to folks as a reference after our meeting. And then we also talked about we're trying to be strategic with Paris, right? So they have strategic focus areas. Those are listed here with some additional information. But for me, I thought what might be most beneficial to you during our work session is combining all of the ideas, all of the goals, all the visions into more of a bulleted list of strategic tasks, action items, ideas
that we could do and present to Ferris for our initial meeting with the president. Here are some things we can do, some areas we'd like your feedback, some areas for improvement. I thought that might be a good way to start our conversation today. Give everybody just a little bit of an opportunity to read. I try to make the font as big as possible. It's easy to read and scan quickly. But give everybody a couple of minutes to read through that countdown brainstorming session. And then we'll go through the list. And if none of it makes sense, let me know. And we can pivot. No, but well, so again, not really giving you new concepts or ideas, taking what we've already talked about today and putting it on into a more organized document. The vision and the mission, kind of everybody was saying a lot of the same things in it, and I thought missions and visions are great, but let's focus on action items. Might be a good way to go. One for us, if we can check things off, and two for the president. And we're talking about having all of his, faculty staff at each different level. So when you have tangible things, that's something you can float around and get the right people. So, that said, feedback. What did you see that you like? What anything?
The countdown statement bullet point is much closer to what he talked about.
Okay.
Just everybody going around saying what they did this year is not going to float it with him or most all of us. Everybody kind of thinks like, send it out in a handout. We could read it and we know what you're doing. The opportunity to share opportunities and ideas and actually come up with plans. That's a key to the new. I'm sure that's what he's going to say on the board. He talked about the things Mark had in his list, the huge list. It's quite an amazing list, except those are all concrete things, and they don't address the elephant in the room, which is we're not overly friendly with each other on a certain level. We do fine with all those things you mentioned, but there is a barrier between the Ferris, especially faculty, and the local folks. How we remedy that? I'm looking through here to see which ones would help that, but that's a huge barrier.
Is faculty staff involvement in the community?
Is what?
Faculty staff involvement in the community?
With us back and forth, there isn't a good relation. Well, I don't think there's a good relation.
I mean, like, Heather does a great job. She does have relationships with all their
facilities people, yeah.
But when it comes to softer things, it doesn't happen.
What would that look like?
I don't know.
What would it look like in an improved relationship?
True heartfelt concern from the citizens of Big Rapids, especially all of us, and the parents the same way. Do they truly have concern about the city and what we're struggling with, what we're doing, and do we have concern with their problems, and how can we get that come together? It was very easy where I went to school because there was nothing else there. We had to survive together to make life enjoyable. But here, it seems like we don't do that so much. If you go to a basketball game, and I think this is silly, but the majority of the fans on the one side are local who go to the basketball games and the visiting team. If you took the locals out of those events, the attendance would be lousy. The Ferris faculty don't greatly attend their own sporting events because they're home in Rockford. They don't want to stay over and go to the game. They go home. There's the locals, we're here, so we go to the games and then we go home. That's a huge disconnect. Pink noticed it right away. After a basketball game, we were stood in the middle and we were yakking and he said, students could do pretty well, not great. So he noticed the same thing. He's so with it that he got it.
Okay.
But I don't know how to remedy those things.
And I don't know that we have to have solutions. I think it's just a matter of, not praising them in terms of this is a problem. Right?
That's
this is
really
an area
not.
for approved.
For sure that one.
So I kind of put that in pride and community. And I think that's, because I think the opposite would be true for us, right?
Definitely.
We would want to make sure that if we had a similar event, that we would
Definitely.
all be represented. Okay. Do you want to just start by each kind of item, go through the list, and don't want to just read it for people, but.
I just want to say something about that issue. A few things we need to recognize. One is that I don't know what percentage of Ferris faculty actually do reside in the city limits anymore. And the fact that many of them don't is a factor in them not being invested, particularly emotionally in the city. The other thing is that they have reduced the number of full-time faculty that have a much larger percentage of adjunct faculty now. That also impacts people with faculty's like where their priorities are in terms of how they feel about the community. Because oftentimes adjunct faculty are putting together 2 or more gigs, teaching it from different institutions to make ends meet. It just kind of depends on what the makeup of their family situation is. One thing I would like to see maybe we could do, because we do know that there are some faculty who have participated with us and had their students do studies like the bike paths and the bike route thing and community development and for other departments in the city, that maybe we could start with those people and try to cultivate some ambassadors, the faculty and faculty who are on campus, and get them to help us communicate that message. It would be great if some of us could attend, be invited, not to show up, but attend some university things that that they are sponsoring and so forth. So my feeling about that is kind of trying to work from the inside out and start with what we already have and kind of cultivate that.
I would have to agree. I think getting the education is helpful,
keeps us from some of the other connections, even if there's somebody who doesn't live in our community, maybe making a connection, finding common ground with somebody who is a city official or a member of the community at one of their events that they're kind of mandatory to attend, would help to develop an interest for them and potentially when they choose to move here. Can't uproot all of those or send them move to somewhere, but maybe making those connections and drawing them in with. Well, you have to be invited to the table first, so. The more diverse the people invited to each of the meetings, the better opportunity to make those connections with different people.
Getting off that a little bit, one of Ferris's core values is diversity and ethical community. And as I was going through the mission and vision, there were some underlying ideas of being accepted, being welcoming, but there really wasn't anything that called out specifically how could we do that, how could we partner with the university on that. And I didn't have to, it's so embedded into their focus areas that I think that that's something we as a group maybe need to spend a little bit more time on thinking about how do we address, so how do we be a more diverse community. There's no answer to that right now, but trying to have a conversation.
I do have a suggestion though. When we have minority businesses opening up, we do surveys, and I know Mayor, you yourself have made it a point of pride that you have been in contact with and visited all of these businesses downtown, as taking it on your shoulders, good job. Sharing of that knowledge, I don't think I've heard one report back of any concrete conversation or feedback over the past few months. And I'd love to have the knowledge. And also specifically, I don't know if you visited with, Casey, Dr. Thompson, or with Noel, and what your feedback from them on being a minority business owner in our community feels like to them. I think if we want to diversify our community, we need to talk to the people who are diverse in our community and see what their lived experience is, the benefits, the positives, and the negatives, and listen with open ears so we can prevent the negatives from happening any new.
Then you should have a open.
I was asking, have you had those conversations or talked about?
No, I have talked to both of them, but I don't like to. It's very hard to decide what you're going to divulge and what you're not going to divulge, and that's why I've never done it, because they tell me all kinds of things, and I'm not sure that that's all public information. In fact, I know it's not, because we get all kinds of things mentioned. And I'm not comfortable with saying what Big Rapids Products CEO thinks of Mark Gifford. I'm not going to bring it here, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing I mean. I think the diversity and equity and inclusion thing should be done at a open forum just like this one. And they should come and talk to us as a
I just didn't know if you would ask if it was
I've met with
possible
both
to share any feedback that you've heard from any of the multiple business owners that you've done.
I'm not going to.
So,
I do budget to Mark when they are grouching about it.
So no sharing of knowledge, there's no asking for permission to share knowledge. Okay.
So one of the things I want to talk about is several of you talked about specific task forces. Your idea right there is a very specific task force so that there can be a venue, one for people to come and talk, but also to have those conversations in a format where the business owners are comfortable sharing their knowledge and taking it back. Now, one of the things Ferris does is, I forget what it's called, it's a committee specific to this issue. And I think it could be someone was on that task force, and I apologize, I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But it's specifically to look at DEI issues out there in the community, in the global. Do you remember what it's called? It's the Campus Climate Committee.
Yeah.
It's not a great, yeah.
It's a funny day.
We haven't had a social equity meeting for a while, and I know we've been talking about what our next phase of, the Big Rapid Social Equity Group is going to be, and maybe this would be an opportune time. Since the university has as their goals, and they're doing that, and we're looking for ways to kind of revitalize and figure out what phase we get of this, how we might move that forward in a collaborative, a little more expansive collaborative thing.
Maybe it could be where we're not duplicating efforts, because part of that Big Rapid Social Equity Initiative is some people were on that and on the Campus Climate Committee. And maybe if we're talking about kind of combining our resources, that's where we have one committee that's for the community. We look at those places to use.
Because I know my message, anytime I have an opportunity to talk to Sarah students, I communicate with them what I believe, which is that while they are living here in the city, they are important members of the community. They don't always feel that way. And I know I've heard from students of color, I don't know anyone of that usually including summit that they have a year or so ago. Hearing some students say that they don't venture off campus if they have concerns about their safety or whatever. So these are opportunities for us to, those are dialogues we need to have, and we can't solve a problem until we understand what the problem is. And it's always important, kind of apropos as Mary just said, to have safe spaces for people to share that information. But again, these are opportunities that I see in the future for the city personnel and their folks to engage in that, so that they're not just talking about inclusive, feeling included on the Ferris campus, but that we should want them to feel included in the Big Rapid community as well.
Well, I don't know who I had this conversation with, but the Coffee with a Cop event is a great event for the community. It's not necessarily a great event for the students, for students on campus. I was very fortunate to interact with cops, with public safety. And so I know, I didn't remember if I was talking to you or with a couple other people, yeah.
My point that I was pushing for, work towards with offering the idea of, is that Coffee with a Cop, where it's traditionally been hosted, is slightly classist and exclusionary to the population that most need to interact with and be willing to trust activities towards. The people who may have the greatest fear are not going to feel comfortable going into the locations because they are diverse and don't feel comfortable there. They don't have money, their clothes may not look nice, they can't afford the most basic cup of coffee in the place that you're going. And I was hoping that event could turn more into a segmented, divide the city into quadrants and, in one of our parks, host this event as an open event in the public with the people who won't feel comfortable going into serendipity, or maybe they can't afford the private car lease or a coffee at Big B, or they don't feel comfortable visiting Pat Curry's gas station. Those people, chances are they have kids, and if they don't have kids, they might feel more comfortable doing open air. I'm walking through this park anyways, I'll see what it's about. Maybe I'll grab a hot dog on my way in, food always is an enticer. But it's a different group of people. I think where you choose to set your meeting sets the tone for who you expect to show up. And the locations being higher end places, or places with some discretionary income, excludes people who don't have it. Those, in my mind, those are the people who would be most likely to get that people and would need that interaction, and may have had a negative impact.
So I think the concept of task force work groups makes sense to people who are focusing on specific things. So if we said we had a recommendation of 4 or 5 or however many we came up with, tasks that we would like to partner with there. I think what I'm hearing is for sure we want to talk about, we don't necessarily have a name for it right now, but some sort of combination of the work that the Fairless Campus Climate Committee is doing and the work that the Geographic Equity Initiative is doing, combine that into one group. So then, what are some other ideas for groups that we would want to have with this?
One of the issues, I don't know if this is the transfer task force or not, but one of the issues that we frequently hear from the businesses downtown is that they don't get enough footpath from their students downtown. And of course, from the fair student point of view, they don't see enough enticement downtown. I don't know if we, I don't know what can be done about that, but something to talk about, and I don't know if we, whether or not, I don't remember if Jesse said she's looked at the student input at all for the economic development strategy stuff, in terms of what students would like to see downtown. But that seems to be, that conversation has been going on for 2 years. I've just been hearing that continually. They may come to certain establishments, but they're not, these downtown businesses are not getting the foot traffic that they need.
Real estate told me that Iceland had never been in for store in 20 years. That was one of my interviews. I probably shouldn't have voiced that.
I never saw him in Harley's place.
Never.
That's not to say he never showed up, but I never saw him there.
Paula knows who goes in there because it's so tiny, and I was shocked. Well, where does he get his stock?
So then maybe it's there's a core group that works on economic development, where there's a couple of layers in here, right? There's getting students downtown, there's getting faculty and staff that come downtown, and it's not just downtown, it's support local businesses as well. So if we're looking at maybe another task force that has potential to be one.
I know Carlene does a lot for students, but I don't know how much what the other businesses downtown can or are willing to.
I would just say
Schubert's does a great job.
As a parent of 2 college students, they're not going to a bar or a restaurant, they're ordering online. Yeah, they're not buying anything.
A tree-grown bakery.
They're not buying they're buying a soccer jersey or a pair of shoes. It's all off the internet. That's where my 2 college students operate. I'm guessing that translates that they're not shopping for stuff.
Well, this is probably the same, so the downtown's ability to adapt to that.
Well, I did that. They go to a restaurant.
Well, I wonder how much they're aware of the downtown restaurants. I mean, they're certainly aware of the Perry Street stuff, or to the fast food stuff. I don't know. It'd be interesting to know how familiar they are with the downtown restaurants. Question for you, Karen. If you can give a perspective on this, what would you say is like the influence of having the rock on campus, keeping students on campus as opposed to coming downtown or that area to try to get their food and
say that there's not a correlation between that. Most students would see their rock and say, only because they have a real family meeting. And those students typically are freshmen, we have a 1-year residency requirement, I think. So after that 1 year, you have a majority of students moving off their head. And then we're talking about students that we would want to get to our downtown where there's other local businesses as well. And the students that do live on campus, are typically still eating at either the Rock Cafe or Park Cafe or one of those places. I think that there's an element to this. I appreciate the work that the DDA does and what they're here for, but I don't want to not include other local businesses in our effort. So I feel that finance together is good. And we have so much more than food as well.
For sure,
Yeah, there's economic development, and then underneath it, and I don't remember what stems that, with more community engagement. And I know that that's something that you and I have talked about. It's probably a similar challenge that Barrett has as well. It goes back to attending sports games, and, community events.
That fall fest with pumpkin rolling and all that stuff, and 3,000 kids getting their candy. It's all local. I mean, I hunted to look for faculty and such, and it was a great event. Everybody had a ball, but you don't see Paris. It used to be the basketball team to come roll pumpkins, but they were out of town. It's just, there's a disconnect is what I'm trying to get at.
I think that's a community engagement.
It's a disconnect, and we just gotta find a way to get it back together.
We'll have the footballers against the hockey players.
Yeah. Well, you get
Or you
make
the littles and the bigs, right?
Yeah.
That's something that a lot of people will come out and support.
But you don't see Paris faculty ever on a Saturday do anything or go to it.
Well,
they might watch hockey though.
I think that also goes back to Commissioner Cochran's comment is, we don't want to have faculty living in our area. This stems from a lot of different things, but we'd be challenged to find a house here first.
I tried to think about that very issue. I said, can't you get your faculty you hire in to live in town?
Where?
Where? I couldn't find a house.
Yeah.
But, the other thing that works against us, unfortunately, is this, the growth of online teaching. People don't, they're not leaving their house. They're teaching class. And again, if you're an adjunct and you're piecing together different jobs, chances are you're teaching online for 2 or 3 institutions. I know that's what, when I was working, my adjunct faculty, many of them were doing that. Working for 2 or 3 institutions at the same time, because online, they do what they call their asynchronous teaching, so you don't actually have to have them sitting in the classroom at the time while you're online with stuff. But that also kind of works against us in terms of having physical faculty. On the ground here, and weekends are sacred, and as I pointed out to folks, anyone who's on a tenured, the issue about we talked about trying to get faculty on city boards, much like
That's it.
Yeah. And I asked her, I think she told me, because she just achieved her whether she received community credit for her time serving on the planning commission. So, because the reality of that situation is, for any person who is on a tenure track, they're not going to do anything that does not get them tenure. Tenure has 3 basic prongs to it: your teaching, your research, and your service. And any dean and any college is going to say you need to focus on this. So, if we want to entice them, because I know there's a lot of talent in there, a lot of smart people in a lot of different areas. If we want to entice them to serve, if they haven't achieved tenure yet, there needs to be that carrot on their end. They have to agree to acknowledge that as part of their service. That's a dicey thing because it's a department by department decision. And it would be nice if we could proceed.
After thinking
I don't know how
about
realistic that is, but.
the new plant that's coming, most of the people that Paris was going to certify on the bachelor's track and they're going to be all people who are Costa County folks who are going to go there to get their battery technician degree or something like that. And he said that's a spot where maybe the city could work closer with Paris. I don't know.
Couple of
That's
things.
probably mission work.
Couple of things from our conversations today that maybe tie into that and more of the academic track. One is internship opportunities. And getting that out, having the sharing degree opportunities the city has. And then create opportunities for students to experience city government. Commissioner Cochran said having volunteer or service hours credit for faculty working on tenure. Is there anything else along those lines?
Is there an internship person now who basically
So
is kind of all internships?
This is where there isn't.
There is
We're
not.
a 5 college and then by program.
Oh.
But you start to have faculty come in and work directly with the city, like the watershed group or a biology class, coming to tour a water plant or something like that. You've got that faculty member who now is building a relationship with other of the staff, and that maybe will spin off other projects. And then
Mayor, did you get any sense about the change in terms of the relationship with the community? Did he have any thoughts about how he's envisioning that?
He's going to bring them.
When we meet with him?
Yeah, because he had nothing specific, but he said, I'll have a lot to talk about it at your meeting. Ideas, I said, well, what have you done with your other universities? And he said, we've got a lot of programs. They did a lot at meeting, yeah. So, but he did not relate them. It was you get your time, and when the time comes, the door knocks, and you're out of there. And so, there's enough here on this that I think just sending him this would be a huge.
I'd like to give everybody a little bit more time to disseminate. I know you didn't get everything in your packet ahead of time. So I'd like to give you time, obviously give the staff an opportunity to provide comments. And then clean it all up and get it back. But I don't think that would prevent us from, one, getting a meeting set up with that team. And two, we would probably be able to clean it up and send it to him at a time.
Yes.
If we so chose.
He wants it before the Christmas break, the meeting. He gave me. Is our meeting up there?
No. We have a commission meeting that night, yeah.
Well, I would really prefer to have him one-on-one with us, as opposed to maybe
Right,
one
as a special meeting.
So are we gonna lean toward the 7th? Anybody got
Do we have
a
the
objection?
time for that?
No. All he said was after people are done with work.
But chances are we could get.
He wants you to work on it.
Well, I'll defer to the people with littles after work. See what they said for a while. Prefer to start by littles. Littles and big.
Littles and biggins, little and biggins.
I think it's the same thing.
The 28th is out, that's your birthday. The 1st is out, that's Crandall basketball. The 5th is our meeting. That leaves the 7th.
So,
Anybody object to the 7th?
How do you propose we handle that? We post it?
If the whole commission's gonna be there, because you don't want the formal trappings of the meeting here, then you pick another site, post it as a meeting.
We posted, we have a city commission meeting at the president's office on campus. Good enough? Yeah. 5:30? I'm done, if we can do that.
Very quick.
Very. I'll get with it.
I would just like the other commission meetings, the commissioners
to agree on 5:30.
Oh, that doesn't have to.
That's fine.
Fine by me.
Is that the time that they're needing it to be? No, we can, I think we can ask. Where it would be more comfortable for me, I can always make 5:30. I get out.
6:30 would be good.
I was gonna say, I shut the door at 5 and there's always somebody walking in at, I'm the only one there and then I'm there for 20 minutes and I can't say get out of my office. Talk me down.
I mean, 6:30 is fine as well, yeah.
I know there
Kind of
are.
at our normal time.
They were all 6:30. I have times. So,
I thought the email that Penny had sent out had
Did it have
times in
times?
it, but I couldn't find the email when I was looking.
I copied and pasted directly from.
Was there times? Anyway, is the 7th good? Is anybody think the
I heard
7th?
the 7th is.
Where is it on 6:30?
Unless you can.
I've never stayed long.
We don't have that somewhere else.
So,
It can be here.
Commissioner Eckley, I feel like I've interrupted you in a thought several times already during the meeting. And I want to give you the opportunity to
We're
speak.
talking about housing and practical stuff, and so we need to get into the issue of the practical and invite practical stuff vendors and having a selling we don't know how to address that problem if we don't run it.
The big one is, you hear the school, they think the school system in Rockford is so much better than here, but they don't, they're not.
I don't know
hear a
much.
lot.
I don't know much about Rockford.
I don't know either.
Essentially, it doesn't surprise me with comparison to our school system.
Well, the money they have.
Well, the big difference that I hear about in half the years is that you just go look at Rockford facilities. They have huge buildings, multiple basketball courts, pools, a lot of money to spend in their district. So the facilities are ostentatious, like almost overbuilt. They appear to be luxurious compared to other school settings. That's what people see first. I don't know if when you get past the buildings that the system is all that much better at delivering education as well directly to people, but the appearance certainly was impressive. But then they give them credit, they got money to spend and they're spending it.
The other issue that, as I mentioned to many of you before, is that we have a working couple. They're both in academia, and one gets a job at Ferris, and the other one does not. But gets a job done at Grand Valley. They almost always have to split the difference in terms of where they're guided.
Well, and there are all different types of people, right?
Yeah.
Some people want to live 15 minutes from a major city. And we're not going to be able to compete.
55 minutes.
55.
Are you old?
Oh, sure.
Do you remember when Bill Winrick was the president of Ferris?
And I remember when we didn't have an express. And I
He
remember
was
when
completely into involving the city in Ferris's social life. He'd have big parties with 30 locals and 30 faculty, and it's just like, it was very good.
I think that era is past.
People at the time, and were part of their team.
From perspective, so I've been invited.
Listen, we can't help the fact that you feel like you're being, having a rough time. But we have to look at everyone, not just your view.
I don't feel like I'm having a rough time. I feel like I'm
Well, you just said it. You just
I feel
said
like
it.
I'm voicing something that
Well,
I
I'd be
haven't voiced
invited.
because there's never been a person like me at the table before.
I
And it's almost my duty to do so.
That's your opinion. But
What's
but
up a
to
lot
say
of
but to say that what I have been invited is accusing him of being a racist.
What does race have to do with it?
That's what you were talking about right there. Would
No.
I be invited? Why did you say it?
I said it because I'm not well connected. I'm not a business owner. I didn't bring race into this at all. That's like the record to show that was me.
That's fine. Yeah. I got it.
So you folks didn't invite my comment tonight, but I had a couple I would love to offer if you would allow me. It wasn't on that last topic. Are you up for it? You're sort of facilitating, so. From my experience with the city and the FSU relationships, what we, over the years, have tried to establish and then continued with some success was somewhat formal contact points. And those are, if you chart them, they're going to be largely identified by ongoing public works, which is the kind of city function that people in the university expect us to provide. You know, police, fire, water, sewer, coordinated efforts to put water, sewer in, get the water to them, make sure the pipes work. All of those activities have established over time contact points where we're talking to them, they're talking to us over mutual needs. And so when we have issues along those lines, we know who to talk to. And it's already working. We don't have contact points in a lot of other areas that are established. I don't know that does anybody at Ferris ask for city commission meetings like Bill Stanek does to send them the agenda? I don't know that that's done. I suspect it isn't.
No. I think it's an area of opportunity.
Right.
You know.
But any of those, if you established any kind of a contact point where we're looking at their materials, they're looking at ours, or we agree to exchange them, whether we read them or not, that's an added, charted kind of contact point that you can find and maintain. And then if it's not used, it would mean that we don't have a need to talk about it. But I don't think you have enough of them. For example, on the whole housing issue within the city, I don't know that we've shared housing data very much with Ferris or tried to coordinate planning that Ferris is doing for housing on campus, off campus. They have, I'm sure, plans to build or not build for the next so many years based on what they project enrollment to be. But I don't know that we're in those discussions. And as much as we've talked about how much housing we need to add and what the efforts are to add, there should be some contact point with Ferris about housing needs over the upcoming 5 years and whether the city and the university are working on the same wavelength. But there's no contact point there that I'm aware of. That would be one that could be.
So the Ferris Housing Department, the Housing Commission,
sure.
The right place.
But that would involve asking Ferris, who's doing your planning for housing, and how can we share data about what you're doing for planning and how much could be on campus or off campus. I don't know how many goals they have for how much on campus housing they want. They probably have an idea of how much they want on campus and how much should be off campus. That would fit nicely with whatever city plans there are to increase off campus housing, whether it needs to be close to the university, far away.
I think your point should be all the way across the board.
Sure.
They must have a planning committee that meets constantly.
No, we do not have a planning committee in the sense that Ferris does not have a planning committee in the sense that the city has a planning committee. We have various department heads that are responsible for planning, for construction, for public safety.
So separate entities for all those?
Separate entities. Now, I think where we start to align and work together a little bit more is when we have our master plan. I think that's when there are 4 members of the city and the
they hire somebody.
They hire somebody.
But what Eric's talking about is those littler. I mean, should we ask them if we could be involved with it?
Either ask them if we should be involved, could be involved,
He may say no,
or
it's not good.
how could we be involved to help you? Because you gotta. I don't remember which commissioner said, maybe more than one of you, that we need to be conscious of what Ferris needs more so than what we need, because they won't necessarily be interested in what we need unless it's also something they need. But the housing seems to me to be a common one. The other one that we've already talked about is census, and we ought to have some kind of a joint committee or group between the city and Ferris that's recognized and then reconstituted within 2 years of each census. So we can get our freaking heads together before the census and say,
Township
you
as
know,
well, probably.
pardon me?
Township as well.
Probably.
That would be excellent.
But that's what should be done. And probably will think to do it.
Well,
The next time we have a census.
We do it, the censuses that I've been involved in, it's called the Complete Count Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And township, Ferris.
Oh, you have already done it?
Oh, yeah.
Before this one?
Yes.
So there's
We've done it
things like
twice
that
I've
that are
been
happening
involved in.
where it's just not
Yeah.
at our level. So one of the things that we could do is we talked about calm down in house. It's just people just saying what they're doing, doing a monthly, one-page note write up, what we're working on, and sharing our meeting minutes with the president and having them forward them to the executive. I think that there's some ideas like that I've heard as well.
Yeah. I don't need to say more.
Inviting him that, once we
Your guys showing
sit
on
down and get a university out there.
What you said was right on the money.
That's what
I
I hesitate to say after the president, at the other, down the road,
What they do, say it again?
President Davies at CMU, Business and Citizens in Montpelier, he gave an update, the update.
kind of like the state of the town to the university. So, I think we might be at a natural stopping point, but I want to do a round table, real quick to see, if there are any comments.
I have mine. Thank you for listening. I'm done.
We have a great president that will cooperate fully. So I think it's in our hands to really work closely.
Definitely. Yeah, work on the time, I'll communicate that, and I know city staff will be on top of it. Any and all new initiatives.
Did you decide where you're doing it?
Yeah, Eric said, what did you say?
Only that you have to post it as a meeting.
You don't
asked
care
if
where
you
we
could do
do
it at the president's
I did
office.
say that.
Under the charter, you can do it anywhere in the city, and you can even do it outside the city if you take a vote to say that.
You here.
It would be, in my opinion, nice for him to come here, but
Okay.
I have no skin in the game, and I am more interested in the other commissioners and the opinion.
Yes.
You have any other thoughts? Email me, call me. Is it incorporated?
Mayor, do you have 5 minutes I could talk to you before you leave for the evening? It's so difficult to get in touch with everybody when they're busy schedules. I would really like to have 5 minutes with you.
You got 5 minutes. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Keep it, you need it. I have a whole box full inside my desk.
What's he do?
Oh, he lost his
I lost my pen. We're equal to this one.
Every good attorney has multiple pens.
I know, I got that good. I didn't have one.
I'm going home.
Do you have a problem with I feel as though you do.
Yes.
How do I stop this?
Previously addressed last
Yes.
meeting.